Well, it might be a mouthful to say mobile virtual network operator, but companies classified as MVNOs have a simple task: to disrupt the industry and service customers. One such company is Melon Mobile. They're pushing into the South African market hard with the aim of disrupting and focusing on digital. So this is Africa Pulse. I'm Bronwyn Seaborn, and on this episode, we dial into the realm of mobile virtual network operators. Well, the CEO of Melon Mobile says you need digital thinking, digital processes, and digital systems to run new age stuff. So it's only fitting that I'm here in a virtual golf bar to sit down with him to discuss the ins and outs of his business. So, Calvin, Collett, thanks so much for joining us here on Africa Pulse.
Thanks for having me.
So you've also said that Melon Mobile is Africa's first truly digital mobile virtual network operator. How so?
So traditionally, the MVNOs in the country, right, have taken a very traditional approach in terms of saying, you've got, I almost want to say a copy-paste of what the mobile networks have got. So it's traditional thinking, you need to go into store to sign up, you've got a Rika in store, those kind of things. We've said, listen, mobile is 30 years old in South Africa, so how do we create a simpler way of doing it? I mean, right now, I use the on-demand shopping guys as a good example, the 60/60s, pick and pay ASAP, etc. You order your groceries and they come delivered. Now, why can't that happen in a mobile environment? I mean, the mobile operators are the guys who've enabled that kind of thinking. I mean, we all have mobile phones, we do so much on their social media, emails, etc. Yet the way you sign up to a mobile network is very traditional, right? So it's go in store, it's nothing's online. So we said, why can we not match the digital way that we operate mobile phones, web, etc., with getting the connectivity that enables all of that, right? So that's ultimately what we did. And our process is very simple. You go onto the web, you sign up in 5 minutes, and you can completely up and running on a fully enabled either eSIM or traditional SIM card, or you can download the app in exactly the same process. So that's what I mean when I say we're the first digital only, because we don't have stores. We are going to open stores, but they're going to be experience stores. They're not there to sign up. It's there to touch and feel the product, understand it better, etc. But it's not the primary means of getting connected to Melon.
So essentially, you're a disruptor.
Well, that's how we started, right? So, I was at MTN for 5 years prior to this journey, and one of the things we saw there was, customer service in this industry, and it's not a South African problem, it's an international problem. So telcos are traditionally the worst in terms of NPS scores, etc. So we went out and said, listen, how do we build a telco that is going to make sure that we offer great customer service, great propositions, etc., and that's going to create disruption, right?
Because onto that, a lot of critics will say digital for digital's sake, or does digital actually address customer needs?
I think that's a really good point. So many, and we see it in the banks, we see it in retail, etc. They want digital disruption. Now, it's one of my pet peeves, to be honest, is, the first thing that people do when they go digital is get rid of people. That's not what you need. You create better customer service out of it. So how do we enable people to self-service themselves better? But when you can't self-service, then what do? Then you want people to deal with. So what you'll see with Melon is we do so much stuff on the app, on the web, but when you can't service yourself, I have real people in a call center behind WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, TikTok, etc., that are able to assist you. And that's such an important differentiator in digital disruption.
Consumers are often very brand loyal, particularly when it comes to this mobile space for some reason. Is it tough out there for you guys?
It certainly is, and I think brand loyalty is one aspect. I think it's mistrust, because there are over 28 MVNOs that have been launched in the past. We've had 2 big MNOs which have not really done what they were supposed to do. So there's a mistrust in the consumer space to say, okay, great, there's a new brand, but can I trust them? Will they deliver on the promises? Because there's so many promises being thrown out there. So will it actually work? Are they actually going to do what they promised? And then is there actually something different in it? Because, I have a massive issue when you're disrupting for the sake of disrupting. I think that makes no sense. And then on the flip side is, you really need to deliver a product and service that doesn't look like the incumbents, because otherwise, what are you actually doing? And so I think, yes, brand loyalty is a factor, and it's certainly there, but not the biggest factor.
Not the biggest factor, but walk us through your market share in terms of the gains you perhaps are making to sell this to customers out there and say, come to us, let us show you our good customer service. What is that market share picture looking like?
So let's start at the beginning, right? So South Africa's got 101 million active SIM cards in the country, right? So we went out and said our 5-year goal is between 500,000 and 1 million customers. So we're looking for, 0.5% to 1% market share. So we're well on track for that. And I think that's an important metric. We didn't go out there saying we want 10% market share. One, I don't think it's realistic, but we're very focused on the customer segment we're going after. So it's 18 to 45 year olds, digital and tech savvy, banks, a credit or debit card, and then smartphones, right? So that cuts out a lot of the market. But also, we really wanted to have, so if you take the market, you've got contracts on the top end, you've got prepaid on the bottom end. That middle class segment has really been neglected. There's no product that was built for them. So we went to build a product that was specifically designed for that customer segment. So, we often say we call ourselves the Netflix for telco. So a subscription-based service, yeah. So that's ultimately what we built.
Because a lot of what's happening in this market at the moment is it's retailers or banks, and they're making use of a very large customer base to be an MVNO. And yet you're niching yourself, right? 100%. To say this is what we're doing. And so is it a question of being in competition with them, or actually saying, you know what, you guys do you, we're going to go and do us?
That's such an important point. The one thing first is start with the MNOs. We need a strong MNO network. So we need a strong MTN, we need a strong Vodacom, we need the strong incumbents. But there are customer segments that they're never going to service well, and that's where the MVNOs must play and should play. My view is, anyone says, do we compete against MTN and Vodacom? No, we don't. They're behemoths. There's no way we can compete against them. But do we look after customer segments within their customer base? For sure. And the same as the bankers, or the banks, the retailers, etc. We're not competing against them, but there are customer cohorts that would fit into our market segment that makes sense.
I found data from Africa Analysis that shows that all MVNOs that launched in South Africa between 2006 and 2013 have now shut down. One that springs to mind is obviously Virgin Mobile. How do you look back at that history and some of the failures there to ensure that you are around for the long run?
Look, a couple of the reasons for the failures was the regulatory framework didn't exist. At the time, Cell C was the only network open to do MVNOs. And I just think the approach to doing that wasn't right. So we've certainly changed that. So I think there are reasons for those failures. But the MVNO market, we really need to get together and stop competing against each other, work together to actually address the market segment that exists. So let's talk international standards. Internationally, MVNOs hold up 20% market share. The MNOs have 80%. In South Africa, we're sitting on 3.5% MVNOs. So taking that into account, there's sort of 16.5% that is available to the MVNOs, and that's what we've got to go after, right? And I think that's a healthy mix between MNOs and MVNOs.
You mentioned regulatory frameworks. We still don't have regulatory frameworks for MVNOs. Is that something that you would like to see come to the fore? Because right now, you really are at the mercy of MNOs.
Totally, and I think it's an important thing. Back to a healthy environment is that 80-20. There's a lot of pushback from the MNOs in terms of MVNOs, and I don't think it's justified, right? I think the point is if they look at us, the cost of acquisition of that other 20% is far higher for them doing it themselves versus what we're doing. So a regulatory framework where we are secure that we are going to be in existence because they're not going to outprice us and those kind of things is important. But look, some basic regulation is in place. So since the spectrum licensing that happened 2 years ago, there's some basic MVNO framework in place, but it's not enough. The bottom line is there needs to be more. for sure.
While we wait to see if that framework, that regulatory framework does come into effect, you are making use of MTN's network. They are the largest mobile operator in Africa. Does that mean you're going into Africa?
So Africa is definitely on our roadmap, but we're also looking at the US and the UK. So the US is a massive market. It's interesting. It's 46 times the size of the South African mobile market. So it's absolutely massive. And they've also just recently become a lot more MVNO friendly. So definitely on our roadmap, as I say, in the UK, but there's certain markets in Africa that are very interesting for us as well. So for sure.
So that on your roadmap from a geographical perspective, from a product perspective, anything interesting we can look forward to?
Look, that's where we have to keep disrupting, right? So pricing proposition is key to our existence. So it's something we're not going to stop doing. So we've got some really nice products on the roadmap. Probably in the next 3 to 6 months, we're going to launch. And I think one of those is devices. I think something that MVNOs have done badly is it's purely SIM only, which is fine. But in a market, so South Africa's got R1 billion a week is the mobile device market. So it's absolutely massive.
Crazy.
R1 billion a week. So if you neglect the fact that people need devices, I think you're missing a massive trick. So part of what we're doing is saying, how do we get devices into every single South African's hands, right? So, the challenge I put out to the team was to say, if someone comes to us looking for a device, they must walk away with the device. Now, whether that's on a cash basis, a 3 month, 6 months, 12 months, 24, 36, whatever that looks like, we need to find a way to put a device in every single South African's hands. And so that's one of the big innovations we're working on at the moment, is to make sure that, we've got that fully packaged deal, because the device is the enabler, right? I mean, the SIM card and, voice, data, minutes, commodities ultimately, and, the prices have come down to a point where, unless you bundle the entire offering, it's difficult to differentiate.
On that note, let's leave it there. Calvin, thanks so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you achieve that. But for today, let's leave it there.
Thank you so much for having me.
Calvin Collett is the CEO of Melon Mobile, and that's where we leave it for this episode of Africa Pulse. But we're back same time, same place next week, so we'll see you then.